Welcome everybody. I'm Will, Mayor. Trustee here. We have some representatives from the tree committee and also from the board committee. So thank you all for being here tonight. I think this is unprecedented as far as I know, having three together in the room. So I'd like to thank Mayor Pro Tem for initiating all this. It's a great idea.
I'd like to thank staff, honestly, for putting this together and for our consultants and all of you for showing up. So, thank you.
So then we have our name tags here. Just real quickly, we just state our name, the committee, and how long you've been on the committee. So I'll start. Will Karspeck. I'm a trustee, and I've been on the town board since 2016.
Wayne, trustee, I think, coming over here. Rick Kirkhead, tree committee, just under 2 years.
Randy Neese, secretary for the tree committee, about 3 years. Sean Murphy, trustee, Mayor Pro Tem, 3.5 years, and then planning 3.5 years before that.
Patty Mitchell, chair of the tree advisory committee, and 3 years.
Glenn Larson, 3.5 years on the tree committee. Danny Wendia, 3 months.
But he's an arborist, so.
Carolyn Hobson, I've been on the port committee for about 3.5 years.
Keith Nolan, the town's public works operations manager, and the port staff liaison. I've been there for about 5 years.
Jim Miller, the deputy town administrator.
Paul Furnace, town forester, staff liaison for the tree advisory committee for about 3.5 years.
Tim Hardy, trustee, I think 7 years now.
Lot planning.
Planning commission for at least.
I say you're the most volunteers.
Neither.
Amy Lenz, tree committee, I think it'll be 4 years next month, and it's our last month.
It's our last month.
Yeah.
Wow. That's crazy.
I am.
Back to-
I'm Hannah, I'm the vice chair of the tree committee, and I've been on here for 3 years.
Carl, trustee and liaison to the board committee for 3.5 years.
Trustee May Albrecht, and I've been since 2020, 5 years. Started off on the port committee for 3.5 years.
I did not know that. That's just crazy. Everyone, I feel like it's just been a year or 2 years to see how long everyone's been on here. That's a lot of experience. Well, thank you again for being here tonight. We also have some folks in the audience, both volunteers and natives here too. And we'll have time for public comment. But we're going to turn it over to Jeremy, and then you want to say a couple words, and then we'll just go from there.
Yeah, again, thank you all for coming and joining meetings are important, to get feedback and things like that on this Arboretum project. Tyler Kiggins from Wank, our design consultant's on the job, and he's the lead on this, and he's going to take us through a little presentation of how we got here. This project's a little bit different. Some of you have followed, we started back in 2023, I believe in the spring of 2023. So we've been working on it a little bit. The committees, some of you may have seen them, some have seen the back end, depending on when you got on the committees and the boards and things like that. But he's going to walk you through kind of the project, and then after that, we'll get into whatever questions or if it's input, feedback, and things like that. And he'll tell you where the project's at and where the finish line's at as well. So hopefully that helps in the discussion tonight.
All right. You don't want to be the nipple in the middle here?
Thank you, Jeremy. Could I have one point of order? Is somebody keeping notes for this? Am I supposed to be responsible? for the
I wouldn't.
notes, or-
I wouldn't bother.
Okay.
The clerk here. It's not a. I mean, I guess it is a notice meeting, but
All right,
you can certainly can. If you want, I'll be taking notes. But there's no requirement.
okay.
Thanks, Jeremy. Once again, Tyler Kiggins from Lake Associates. We're landscape architects located in Denver. We've been working on numerous projects up in Berkeley for a while now, and then on this project since 2023, like Jeremy mentioned. Here's just a little bit of information on the project schedule itself. So as we mentioned, back in March of 2023 is when we got our notice to proceed and actually started working on the project. We worked on it basically March through the rest of that year. And then beginning of 2024 is when we came to the town board and we got approval on the master plan at that time. Since that point, there was a brief pause, and then we kicked up again. We started working on the construction documents, so the drawings needed to actually build the Arboretum. And since that started up, we've been having bi-weekly meetings with town staff, with Jeremy, with Keith, with Paul. Every other week we meet and we present stuff. Sometimes we just have conversations. It depends on what the topic is that week. We've been to a couple port and forestry committee presentations as well throughout that time frame, just as needed whenever we're presenting a next step. We submitted a schematic design, so preliminary design submittal back in July of 2024. So that was kind of our first official submittal of the construction documents that the town staff, everybody got a chance to review and comment on. We took those comments at that point, little after July that year, and started working towards our design development submittal. So that's where we really start. Schematic design, we're really kind of still out here, and we just start honing in on every aspect of the project. We submitted that design development back in March of this year, and so at that point we've gotten quite a bit further along. We have a lot more of the engineering done, more trees selected for the Arboretums, more accurate pricing, stuff like that. And then we are anticipating going into basically in a month and a half our 90% construction document submittal, and then soon after that 100%. So those 100% drawings are the ones that you can take out to bid to get a contractor to come to work on the project. So we are anticipating by October of this year that we would have final drawings for this project to go basically put out in the street and get contractors to bid on it. Any questions on any of that?
One of the biggest questions that we got during birthday days was, when is it gonna get built? So, we just kind of threw out the general date of this time next year. We figured there would be dirt moving. Is that fairly accurate?
I think that sounds pretty accurate to me. Is that true still, Jeremy?
Yeah, if every step gets through approval and things like that, contractors a bid, yeah.
2026.
Yeah.
Yep. And then I'm just going through just a couple concepts, like early on stuff. You can tell we did some drawings that are a lot more sketchy, high level. You'll see some of the bones of this project are still there. And partially that's because even to get to this drawing, we put together 3 or 4 different drawings. And then we start to hone in on those, and then we kind of come down to one selected drawing, and then we start to kind of refine that over the period of months in time. So this is the first one we took to another joint committee meeting back in 2023. And really we got approval on everything. Some of the comments were really a little bit simpler, like the 8-foot wide primary trail and 3-foot wide adjacent soft trails for trails and pathways was accepted and was what everybody wanted. So that was like one of those things that kind of just seemed like, it's the way we're headed, we're just gonna keep going with it. The overall layout was accepted, just kind of where everything was. And you can see on the screen, some of those program areas, kind of in the right-hand side, there was a pond at this stage as well, kind of the blue circle egg shape. There was some topography, and then on the left-hand side of the drawing was still kind of more of a more active zone. Not super active, but that was just where you might have some more of the program activity is a little bit less pastoral. You have maybe some of the relic irrigation, maybe the tree nursery was down there. We had community gardens and stuff at that time as well. Everybody at that time really liked the agricultural theme and to try to keep establishing that throughout the project. Native and low water plants was highly suggested, and we're totally on board with that. And then we are doing a memorial as well for Jane's brother, who was the person that donated the property to the town. So that was kind of, we started talking about where that memorial might be and what that actually encompasses. We took some of those comments and then we came up with a revised plan, and we took this one to the port meeting in September of 2023. Trails were still okay. You can see we started to modify some of the topography here. And at this point, we really were starting to get into trying to understand our cut and fill. So how much soil we need to bring into the site versus soil that needs to leave the site. And so we really felt strongly that we wanted to make some hills and some topography out on the site, because it is such a flat site currently, and the trees would start to create some spaces to occupy and to delineate different zones. But it was going to take years, 20 years or so, until some of those trees actually get big enough and start to create some of those other zones for you. So we felt strongly in adding some topography to the site. And at this point, we had quite a bit of fill. We've really worked through that, where we've manipulated a lot of landform, taken a little bit out of other areas to really get our cut and fill balanced as closely as we can. It's pretty close right now. One of the comments on this one was the tree nursery, so we've been including this tree nursery in part of this project. Basically kind of just an open area that has right now it has like a split rail fence around it, has its own irrigation system to it, and it's a spot where like Paul could start to develop and grow some other trees and start to fill in this nursery over time as well. So, and some of those he might be working with some trees that are a little harder to find or some very select species or variety that he just wants to try to grow and test out a couple things and try to plant them into the nursery or greater town of Berthoud as well. Everybody was really on board with that, but they just didn't like it being so close to the Highway 17 or Berthoud Parkway just because it was kind of a visual thing. Sometimes it does just look like, the bare soil and little baby trees in there, and it's always changing over time as well, which I think is one of the coolest parts as a visitor to the Arboretum. Every time you go, you can maybe see some different trees moving around and see how that's moving. There was a lot of questions about the interest for a community garden on this project. And about the same time, we were working on the other community garden at Pioneer. And basically during this time, it was decided that there probably didn't need another community garden at this park, especially one that was that large. So we did remove that based on the feedback from the port committee at that time. Another question was, we have this community hub area, and it's kind of hard to see. It was a smaller here. Let's go up to here. We have this zone that was right in here where we like the idea of some sort of a shade shelter and a lawn, somewhere that the community could gather and come together. Talk about small, get-togethers, a wine tasting event, whatever it is, just some small group activity there. Everybody was really in favor of that. They just really wanted us to confirm that it was the right size and it was, faced the right direction, the orientation for sunshade and everything as well. So we've kept that in it. It's grown a little bit to accommodate a slightly larger event if ever needed. And then the orientation is actually flipped 90 degrees from this one. And then the last one is just to maintain some sort of a buffer between the pickleball and the garden. We still have a little bit of a buffer, but the plan's kind of changed enough that that buffer is not as applicable. This was the plan that came out of those meetings, and you can start to see the pond has stayed in there. We started to kind of right-size the pond, and originally we were trying to use the pond for some irrigation on site. It's become very difficult just because of the high water table. So right now it's a static pond that has an aeration to it, so it keeps it clean. We started adding some more specific seed mixes. So some of those purple areas might be some more flowers we were thinking incorporated into the seed mixes. We have the hills, and still have the hills. Can you see my mouse on the screen? Yeah, perfect. And then we started to, at this point, we really started diving into some of the trees more, like the Arboretum experience. And so we started thinking through, this 21 down here, we have it labeled as the fragrance walk. So is this somewhere that at one time of year, all those are flowering at the same time, and we get that fragrance as you walk through there? We have pines up on this hillside, started to have more gamble oak and some other really sunny locations. Just started to kind of think about where all these different plant materials go and the different planting communities within the garden, or the Arboretum in general. And then you'll see, because of that last meeting, we did start to shift. We took the nursery and moved it plan north or east towards the middle school. Started to make that event lawn bigger with the shade structure there. Still, we're working on the community garden, I guess, and maybe we misspoke last time. We're still working on that, trying to figure out if that was needed. Here's that enlargement, kind of what that area is. And then at this time, we were still kind of carrying that parking lot as a gravel lot, that's the existing lot that's out there right now in Wagner Farm Park. And it was kind of around this time we decided to go to an asphalt lot and start to enlarge it as well. So this is currently where we're at. So like I said, we're going into our 90% construction drawings with this current design, and I can walk through everybody through it. On the left-hand side here is the parking lot. So this area is the existing gravel, and we're expanding to make some more room in the parking lot there. This is the event lawn now. It's we've right-sized it. We did a bunch of scale study comparisons with other nearby, kind of outdoor amphitheaters, like the one at Spring Creek Gardens in Fort Collins. That's on the bigger side of what we were looking at. So you still have that. We have a little area in the back, some trellises, and then a lot of this area kind of in and around that, we're thinking is more of a demonstration garden. It's less of like the native grass, it's more of the container planting. And I don't have that all for you guys tonight, but that's really starting to break down into like a rose garden within there, or all white flowering plants, or is there an herb garden? It kind of starts to break down a little bit further into those zones as well. And that's kind of where we're at now. Like I said, we started really big and we're just honing in. We have what we think is a lot of the bones in, and now we're kind of adding like the specific plants, and we're into that next layer of detail. The tree nursery has moved up here a little bit, still in there. We have a restroom facility here. It's a